So I only have one question, no gift cards. Does anybody know why March 12th, 2020 is important? Remember what happened March 12th, 2020? COVID shut down, yeah. Anybody else? It was my birthday. No gift cards? It was both. Yeah, it was a weird way to spend my birthday. I was actually with a group of pastors in Wewoka, Oklahoma. And I think there's at least 2 or 3 guys that might know where Wewoka is. Does anybody besides Cody and David know where Wewoka? All right, there you go. It's not really close to anything, but maybe Arkadelphia, not Arkadelphia, but Shawnee, where David was born. There were a group of pastors there, and they found out it was my birthday. They sang. I love it. Getting to serve pastors is so much fun. And then we didn't know there would be a pandemic. We didn't know how to pastor through a pandemic. I was actually doing an interim in Tulsa at the time as I was serving pastors in the state anyway. And we tried to figure out what to do. Just like every parent tried to do, every teacher tried to do, pastors were trying to figure out too. We didn't have a playbook. Nobody had a playbook for this, other than on my way home, I needed to get as much toilet paper, Pop-Tarts, and ammunition as I could find, right? That was the play. And then get stay home a couple of weeks and everything would be fine. That's what we were told. And so we did it. But we did the best we could. And I'll tell you what, if you were a teacher, a school teacher, and a parent, you get double points for surviving that crazy time. But I read in the paper about one guy who knew exactly what to do on March 12th, 2020. And he happened to be a Baptist pastor. He was a retired pastor, 93-year-old retired pastor by the name of Jack Eccles. I read about him in the USA Today, which had solicited for stories of courage from COVID to inspire other people. And so it caught my eye about this Baptist pastor. He and his wife, Jerry, had been, I think we have a picture of them, had been married for 70 years, had 9 children, and lived in North Carolina. And every day, Jack would go visit Jerry in the nursing home, in the memory ward, because she'd been diagnosed 18 months earlier with Alzheimer's. So he would go every day, and he'd feed her 3 times a day. And so among the other things that changed, I think one of the worst was that if you had loved ones in a nursing home, you know that we couldn't go in, they couldn't come out. It was a lockdown situation for them. And Jack knew that. So, without hesitation, this 93-year-old man went home, packed his bag, and moved in. I've told that story a million times. I think one time I've not cried. Man, that gets me every time, because that's the kind of pastor and that's the kind of person, that's the kind of father and husband that I want to be. He moved in there. He fed her every day, rented a room, and for 18 more months until she died, he stayed in that nursing home. Why was he in USA Today? Because this story obviously touches the heart. And then Wall Street Journal picked it up. And these pictures actually came from the Wall Street Journal. And then others picked it up. And it wasn't inspiring, because it showed us what marriage looks like. It showed us what faith looks like and when it comes together. And that's what we're doing tonight. I want to commend you for making time to be here, because, and last week and next week. Fact is, you're not here because you didn't have anything else to do. Because whether you're about to be married, thinking about being married, you've been married a long time, there's a lot of encouragement from God's word about how to do it right. And honestly, the best advice is old school. I'm not going to tell you anything that you didn't know. I'm going to remind you some things you've probably heard your whole life, and it's exactly what Jesus did. he quoted Moses. And of course, God wrote the entire Bible. But he says the best marriage advice I could find in all the Bible comes from Genesis chapter 2, which is what Jesus quoted. He said in Mark 10:6, from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother, and the two will become one flesh. Which is, your translation may say cleave, but King James does. So they're no longer, and then Jesus added this commentary, that for they're no longer two, but one flesh, therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate. And so you basically have these old school ingredients, leave and cleave, which basically is a summary of what to do for your entire marriage. Leaving is the protection part, how to protect your spouse, how to protect your marriage. And then the cleaving is the pursuit. Leave means to pursue hard. And so Jesus and Moses, whenever they agree on something, hey, it's all good. And so this is what we're going to visit. I'm going to give you 4 ways to protect your marriage, just in the spirit there of leaving. He says the first one, when God's joined, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Now, the first person that I said no to on January 2nd, 1988, when I said yes to Janet, she said yes to me. The first person I had to say no to was Mark Dance. And that is the case for any marriage. It's the hardest person to say no to. And honestly, that pretty much summarizes about every marriage challenge: selfishness. When you come together, no one separating. And so when I said yes to Janet, I said no to 3.5 billion men and 3.5 billion women. Some of you heard me say that before. I didn't used to have to say the men part, but it's 21st century. So I just want to be clear that saying yes to Janet, mostly the person that I know was in a position to hurt our marriage or help our marriage more than anybody is myself. But then the Bible also says what you do next. You leave, you demote your parents. You demote your parents. So you have to demote yourself to protect your marriage, and you have to demote your parents. Leave your mom and dad. That's pretty specific, isn't it? I went to my first and hopefully last wedding shower last year. So I'm 60, so I'd never been to a wedding shower, never been to a baby shower. I was really good with that. But we were living in Dallas at the time, working with 500 employees at Guidestone, and one of them just talked me into coming. And she, her parents were missionaries. It was just kind of like, okay. And so I came, and it was all right at first. It was quasi-comfortable, not real comfortable. I was just kind of awkward there, brought the present, looked it up online. I was good to go, had some snacks, and then it got weird. Right when I thought it would be over and I could go back to work, they said, would any of you like to share advice, marriage advice? And so, I didn't say anything. Now, most of them knew I did a lot of this kind of thing, and so I got called out, so I said, after everybody said sweet things, including a whole table full of single interns. They had more marriage advice than anybody else. That was the most painful part. So I just said, hey, only advice I have is to make sure you break up with your parents. Period. Now, fact is, if their marriage is going to grow, everybody in their life needs to be demoted. That doesn't mean dishonor your parents. You honor your parents. It's one of the 10 commandments. And it doesn't mean to love them less. It means to love her or your spouse, him, more. So it's not so much everybody gets a demotion, is that when you say I do, they get a promotion, and you demote yourself. And the less of you, more of it, just like with your Christian covenant, those two covenants are very clear. Jesus and Janet. If I'm good with those two, everything's good in my life. And so some of you have had various experiences with breaking up with your parents, right? So I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm just saying that I share your pain. Because it took my mom a few years to figure out where she was on the pecking order, because I was her baby, and that was hard, that this girl from college kind of took her spot. She was okay with it to an extent, but it created some tension. And so we had to make sure that everybody knew Janet was the queen of my life. Jesus is the king of my life. And everyone else has an important role, but just not as important. And when a parent and child bond, it's called symbiosis. But if you're an adult, it's just called pathetic. So if you have an argument tonight and then you call your parents and tell them about it, that's not symbiosis. That's actually ignoring a boundary that God gave all of us. Love and care for your parents. Just don't prioritize them above your spouse. And then came along Holly and Brad. Holly and Brad took a lot of the time and attention from us. You notice that about babies? I mean, they really take a lot of energy. They take a lot. And for young couples, it's hard because you're kind of growing your marriage. And the fact is, these kids, they don't know how to feed themselves out of the box, right? They don't know how to dress themselves. They don't even know how to talk. So they require a lot of attention. And that first year, especially, it's harder for the moms, but moms are created tougher than dads. Have you noticed that? I mean, just go to an airport. My mom can drag kids and take care of things and, do multiple things all at one time. Not men. We can only do one thing at a time. Some of us are delusional about that, but we can't. We cannot do more than one thing at a time. Women are incredible. They're a miracle, and they're awesome. But when there comes a point when you have to demote your kids as well. Again, not saying don't love your kids, but let no one separate. Includes them. So they start off at the center of attention. But again, you have to constantly fight for the margin, for the time, for your marriage, for the priority that they deserve. Song of Solomon 2:15 says, catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, for our vineyards are in bloom. Please don't make me spell that out in my home church. Foxes are metaphors for anything harmful, threatening to your romance. And so, make sure that in those years, especially if you have a preschooler, but this goes on through as long as you have kids in your house, never stop dating. And so, the guilt that you might have of letting someone else watch your kids while you have a date, have a trip, it doesn't, just come back to your calling, protect your marriage, sometimes even from your kids. And when you do, you're discipling them and showing them how to be good spouses later on. And simply leaving yourself, your parents, your kids, and even your coworkers. I put members here because of those 130 marriage events. I have one in a couple of weeks in Southern California. I had one 3 weeks ago in Kentucky. And I only do them for ministers. You're the exception. Because I don't have time to do them elsewhere. And when I can invest into a ministry marriage, then therefore I can invest in all their congregations. And that's just the lane God put me in. When I stopped being your pastor, I started being a pastor to pastor. So I'm still doing that. And so I enjoy that. So for you, that might be coworkers, it might be friends, it's just other people, just anybody. Anybody that's a threat to your marriage, and they won't be overt threats, but they just don't know what all commitments that you've made. And be careful with your yeses, because the biggest yes you need to save is for the person that you have a covenant with, right? And so if you're a Christian, your first covenant's with Jesus. And if you're married, your second covenant, your spouse. Again, I told you, old school. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything new. Genesis 2, been there a long time. Long time. So let me ask you this. Who needs a demotion in your life? Just think about it. Think about it tonight. Think about it tomorrow. And if any way, you can't control the other people, but you can create boundaries to protect your marriage so that you can get to the good part. Here's the good part. This is the fun part. And that's pursuing your spouse. Because once you've demoted people, you've given room for your marriage to grow. And basically, leave just means to pursue. And it's not something that you do in the Bible before you get married. Not saying you can't date. We dated 3 years before we got married. But in biblical times, they didn't date. All right? They didn't date. But what happens after you say I do is where the pursuit really starts. This is not a time to coast, to let go. This is the time to ramp it up. And so I want to give 3 ways to do that. 3 biblical ways to pursue your spouse. And then I'm going to let y'all go by 7:15. He said 7:15, right? I might let you go early. I'll give you a head start on that pursuit. I hope all you catch each other before you go to bed tonight. Before you go to sleep tonight, I should say. You got to do that first part. It's worth it. It's worth it. Even if you do get in an argument, that's not bad. Janet used to speak with me here all the time, and she was welcome to and invited to tonight. Let me tell you something that I had to learn, and I learned this by doing the first thing here, which has been my biggest challenge in life. First one is listening attentively. Listening attentively. Now, it took me a while because people who speak for a living generally have a hard time listening. Not because listening is a very unselfish thing to do, but it's the key to good. It's the key to marriage. It's the key to parenting. It's the key to pastoring. It's the key to success at your work. It's the key to being a good church member. Listening is awesome. But for those, in most couples here, you have a listener and you have a talker. You have somebody who wants to play the game married to somebody who doesn't want to play the game. In every dynamic, you know, we saw him as he was pointing them out. There was a yes face sitting next to a no face, right? That just means you're normal. Believe me, you do not want 2 yes people living together. The world's not ready for that. You don't want 2 talkers. It's chaos. And so God had great mercy on me. I grew up in a house of extroverts. And so when I married Janet, who is a card-carrying introvert, it was wonderful. When I send her a question by text, she'll say, okay. ETA is 4 o'clock. Okay. I'll ask her a yes or no question, and she will say yes or no. I don't know what I did to deserve such an amazing woman, but let me tell you, it's a gift. So one day, because I've been dragging her all over the country, we did not see this coming. As you guys know, other than for police, we did a banquet, marriage banquet for them every year. I didn't do marriage events. Didn't speak at marriage events. I spoke to you guys, you know, every Sunday. And then somebody asked me to do a marriage night for pastors in San Diego, and which was more of a panel forum. But then that opened up to retreats and all this other stuff. And honestly, I don't, if people want me to talk about Jesus and Janet, I'll do it. But I mean, I had no idea. I was not trying to get 130 events. I just, sometimes God opens the lane and just walk in obedience to it. But then I've been dragging Janet around these things, and she'll go, and she's great because she's not only been a pastor's wife our whole adult life, but been also a pastor's kid. And so she really connects with pastors' wives. The thing is, she didn't like being on stage behind the microphone doing presentations. She didn't mind a Q&A time, because a lot of times there are. If you have questions, she'll answer them. She's not shy about her love for me, but she just kind of nervously said, I don't want to do that anymore, because she thought I'd be disappointed. And I said, that's fine. I don't want to be a realtor. So you do your thing. I'll do my thing. Everybody's good, right? Because I have fun up here. But the fact is, I can't change her. She can't change me. It takes a long time to actually figure out the strengths of your spouse, the needs of your spouse. And the not-so-secret sauce to that is just listening. It's just listening. So let me talk to the non-introverts, whether you're an ambivert like me or an extrovert or you're not sure, but you're not an introvert. The key here is to stop talking. Nobody wrote that down. I was mentoring a pastor, well-known pastor in the Nashville area, and I use this with permission. He asked me to mentor him, disciple him, and I told him, I said, go home every day this week. This was like first assignment. Go home every day this week. Ask your wife how she's doing, and don't talk for 10 minutes, other than if she asks a question. Don't, and don't let your boys interrupt. And so, end of the week, how'd it go? He was so proud of himself. He said, I did it once for 15 minutes. I listened for 15 minutes, and it was so painful. So he said, this was much harder than I thought it would be. It's not complicated. It's just hard. Because, you want to get on the phone, or there's a television on, or there's a kid climbing all over you, or something's going on, or she says something that reminds you of something, or he says something that reminds you of something. They have a problem. You want to fix it, when all you really need to do is just stop talking. If I was talking to the 22-year-old Mark Dance when I started pastoring, and if he was up here, the one advice I'd give him to be a better pastor would be stop talking. I don't just mean length of sermons. I'm just talking to people. Be a better listener. Be a better listener. And I'm still working on it, to be honest with you. 86% of divorced couples who were asked by Gary Chapman, a survey funded by Gary Chapman, his needs, her needs, 5 love languages, that guy. Why'd your marriage fail? 86% said deficient communication. So Peter, probably not the best listener if you read his bio, talked too much, said awkward things. He's the one God decided to give us this golden nugget. Love your wife in an understanding way. In other words, listen to your wife. That gives great hope for people like me. What I think happened is Peter grew up. Peter matured. His faith matured. He was the only one we know was married when he became an apostle. And so if you're there and you're going, man, I'm terrible at this. All right, well, here's the game plan. Don't be. Now, bad news is you can't change. You can't change. You can't change yourself. You can't change your spouse. Good news is if you're a believer in Jesus, God can change anybody. God can change anybody. And so start with yourself, not your spouse. Get that vulnerable place and then go, I need to work on this. And just go to work. Let the gospel just completely change your marriage. Because the gospel means that Jesus can do anything for anybody at any time. So I brought a short video. to show you, because 3 years after I read about Jack Eccles, I was talking about this at a conference in Dallas. Ministers, like 300 ministry couples. And I used that same intro. I don't remember if I cried or not. And afterwards, a pastor came up in Texas. He said, I know where Jack lives. Really? He said, yeah, he's a member of my church. He goes on Sunday morning, on Sunday night, and Wednesday night, and now he's 96 years old, and it was 15 miles from where I was speaking. I said, can I go meet him? He said, sure, and he arranged it. I went over to his house, and I met Jack Eccles, now living with another of his 9 children, not the one in North Carolina, but now 15 miles away from me, and I asked him, I said, can you give any good advice? And here's what he said.
Proposed to 8 different girls, but I finally scored. And I tell you, God put us together, and we just, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. We were matched by the Savior, and the thing is to listen to her. And for sure, she listened to me. And it's God's plan to enjoy each other. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Isn't that crazy? So I called his pastor about a year ago. How's Jack doing? There's now at this point, he's 97. He says, Jack's still around. He moved into a full-time nursing home. I know there's a better word for it. And he's teaching every Sunday. He's teaching a Bible study in there. I'm telling you what, I know there's streets of gold for everybody. Everybody gets a mansion, but if some get bigger than others, I want to go to the Eccles house for barbecue. You know what I mean? Good grief. I didn't tell him what to say. Listen to your wife. 70 years of marriage. If Jack says it, I'm listening to it. He knows. He knows. Now, what that looks like for those of us who struggle in the area of listening is if your spouse says something, and it's usually casual, and you go, I need to remember that. Well, you've got a phone, you've got a place to write notes. Take a note. Do not trust your memory. That's how I know what to put in Janet's stocking every year. That's how I know what to do on Valentine's Day. I don't trust my memory. I go to the notes. And it has everything that if she says it, I write it. And then there's a Janet file. There always has been. I mean, I've had it for years. I know what size shoes she wears and the size of everything else. And because it's all right there. If you go to a store, you just show them that. You've got that. You got that. Take notes. So, first way to pursue is listening attentively. The second is loving intentionally. Loving intentionally. And what Paul the Apostle says, Ephesians 5:33, each of you is to love your wife as himself, and the wife's to respect her husband. So, you've heard multiple sermons, some of you from me, about love and respect. And it's nothing new there. Both deserve both. You both deserve love. Both deserve respect. One might be a priority for her and for him. Again, you got an unlikely source of advice, a single guy who probably never had a second date. I mean, can you imagine going on a date with Apostle Paul? He's like, so let's talk about your hair. Some of you know from 1 Corinthians, and jewelry. Jewelry, do you need all that jewelry? And when we get to church, don't say anything. That was advice in 1 Corinthians about women. So I don't know if that's why he was single. He said it was a gift. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have when we get to heaven. Like, was that a gift? Really? So the Bible says her primary needs love. That's connection, security, to cherish. You probably said that in your vows. I did. And his is respect. How you talk to us, how you talk about us. especially with other people. It matters. It matters. It doesn't just matter to husbands. It matters to sons and fathers, how you respect them. When you thank somebody for their service, you see an older guy like Janet's parents or members of this church, and his dad or her dad sometimes wears a Korean War veteran hat. And in public, people acknowledge that. I could see him stand up taller. You know what I mean? That little boy that you scolded in front of the other little boys, you just pierced his heart. In a way, whether you're a man or woman, you pierce that little boy just like you pierced your father or grandfather. Because respect will always be their number one need. And the thing is, the more you're married, the more you know where that soft spot is, that vulnerable place. Because you know what kind of love that she needs. And so withholding that can be cruel. Silent treatment can be manipulative or sarcasm or whatever it is. You find out how she needs to be loved. And then you just basically reciprocate. You reciprocate. Make a competition out of it. Romans 12:10 says, outdo one another in showing honor. That's a great competition. That's a great competition. Outdo one another in showing honor. And by the way, I've seen Alex and Cliff do that a long time. They stink at this game, but they're really good at marriage. And that's what matters, isn't it? How we look out there in public or on social media, that doesn't mean anything. Be famous at home. Loving intentionally, finding out, learning what your love language is, finding out what lights them up in a good way. Because in doing that, you also find out what lights them up in a bad way. But then outdo one another in showing honor. And then the last way, to pursue each other is the romance part. And so you pursue each other by listening, loving, and romancing. Listening attentively, loving intentionally, romancing consistently. And so, I'm not gonna spell this out. It works differently for different couples. But the thing is, people like to be pursued, and for all of us, we have to, to grow a marriage, we're gonna also have to not pursue other people. I mean, that's obvious. But in our quest to avoid the wrong person, let's be careful not to abandon the pursuit of the right person. Let's not take them for granted because we know that they're not leaving, because we assume that they'll always be there. We could take each other for granted, and that's what the opposite of what pursuit is. Pursuit is, man, I'm going hard after it. So find out, for example, it's not all couples here, but you can do this. You don't have to be married, and you don't have to, but one thing that I'd like to challenge you to do before the end of the night, after church, on the way home, say, what one thing, you can call it bucket list if you want, what's that one dream? What's that one trip? What's the one thing that you want? And then you help them get there, all right? Like, big old truck, right? The fact is, he's dreaming about that truck, not the roof, which makes him normal, right? Austin's thinking about how to kill and grill the next animal, makes him normal. Now, you don't have to understand your spouse completely. You don't have to, to totally empathize. It's just like, this is your dream, not my dream. And you don't have to do everything together. I love it when Janet does things with her friends, and some things we do together, but find out what their dream is. Just one thing. I mean, it could be lots of dreams, but just their primary top thing. Find out what it is, the primary, and then be the champion for that dream. Pursue it. Start saving money. Create space on your calendar with that pursuit in mind, even if it's years. When we take a big trip about every 5 years, we'll take a big trip and we'll save up for it. For our entire marriage, we've lived within our means, and we would create space financially and on the calendar that instead of just hoping it would show up miraculously, because it won't. Life will steal all that from you. People who love you will steal that from you, but they're not trying to blow up your marriage. It's not their job to manage your marriage, right? It's your job. It's our job to pursue each other. And so in doing that, find out what you're pursuing so that you're not spending time worried about or wondering what the other person's needs are. Just ask and then pursue. In Deuteronomy 24:5, it says that when a man takes a bride, he must not go out with the army or be liable for any duty, assuming this is government duty. In the context of Deuteronomy, this was still a nomadic Exodus phase. It said basically he can't join the army. He can't go and raid the Amalekites or any of the other ites for his first year. Why? God's setting him up for success. You pursue her, not your career. It shows you the heart of God. So let me read that again, then the rest of it. The man takes a bride, so this isn't first year of marriage. He must not go out with the army or be liable for any duty. He's free to stay at home for 1 year so that he can bring joy to the wife he has married. Deuteronomy 24:5. Now, something else besides these wedding showers and baby showers that I missed was paternity leave. They didn't have that. I feel a little ripped off, to be honest with you. I think for our generation, we ought to get something for grandkids. You know, it doesn't have to be a whole big thing, maybe a little thing. We didn't get any time off. But here's what, and we don't see, and that's fine. I love that you're getting paternity leave. I'm just a little jealous. But the fact is, this is deeply embedded in the Word of God, that God is not only creating a union and He's bringing us together, but He's protecting it. He says, okay, I want this couple to be protected. I want them to spend a year pursuing each other, and so that He can bring joy to the wife He has married. That's old school. That's original stuff. And that's the heart of God. So, excuse the pun, cheesy pun, but the 3 simple dance moves I've used to try to grow a marriage that we've used. One's connect daily, date weekly, explore annually. What does this look like? It means that the first question asked when I get home is, how was your day? Or some variation of that. And so, you know, when kids at home, you'd have to kind of protect that, and I'd have to put my phone on silent. I still have, every day is our best conversation. Fact is, God created Janet quite a bit different than me in many ways, but one of those is I'm a morning person, and she's not. She's not even really, I'm not sure she's even saved till like 10 a.m. I'm not judging her, but it's just there's no fruit of the Spirit before then. And so no significant, good, healthy conversations are going to happen in the front part of the day because I'm all, let's go. I have not used an alarm clock ever, including when I preach the early services. I just wake up. Let's go. But if any of y'all have been with me, and some of y'all have after 9 p.m., you know there's another version of me. This melatonin kicks in, and I don't want to talk. I don't want anybody to talk to me. And then if she asked a heavy question on the front end of our marriage, she would bring something up that required thinking. It's like, can we talk about this tomorrow? We can start at 6 a.m. if you want to. So every day, find when that is for you. For us, it's before and during dinner. That's our sweet spot. Find your sweet spot, make it happen, be intentional about it, and connect every day. And then once a week, date. I know it's really, really hard if you've got preschoolers at home, and so no one aces this perfectly. Don't give up the pursuit just because you can't pull it off every week. Just try to do it every week. And if you're empty nest, you can do it every week, whether it's you've not had kids yet or already had them. Just keep dating. I have too many friends and family that get all the way to their 25th anniversary and check out. You do too. Because that last kid leaves, their marriage is as empty as their nest because it all went to the kids and they stopped dating somewhere along the way. So date every week. It doesn't have to be fancy or expensive, just intentional. And then every year we go somewhere together. And some of you like to go vacation with other people. We don't. So don't take it personally. We're not taking you with us. And so sometimes it's beach or mountain. Sometimes it's not that crazy. But just don't give in and let it go, because erosion happens without us knowing. It happens slowly. It happens without notice. Philippians 2, 3, and 5, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, consider others as more important than yourselves. And everyone should look not only to his own interest, but rather the interest of others. That very familiar passage is not contextually marriage advice, it's just people advice. But unselfish spouses, it's hard not to reciprocate. So if you're in a spot now, maybe you're here tonight and your spouse couldn't come or wouldn't come, and you're like, what do I need to do? Love them and just be consistent. And if you're consistent, they will reciprocate. May not be immediate. And it may be because of baggage that you're not responsible for that came from somewhere else. But regardless, as again, because we believe the gospel, God can change anybody, we can change nobody. And so don't try to change your spouse. Don't shove the notes or something I said into their face. This is the grace zone. The gospel is a grace zone, whereby nobody's here because we deserve to be. No one's going to heaven because we deserve to go, right? It's by grace, not by works. And it's the same with marriage. Same with marriage. You're going to say dumb things. Because I talk more, I say more dumb things than Janet does. But grace zone, is where a gospel thrives, or where a marriage thrives. And so you can do this. You can listen, you can love, and you can romance. The gospel is not a gotcha plan. It is a grace plan. And so the grace that you receive from Jesus, we're told to pass it on to others. If you don't forgive others, I'm not going to forgive you. That's how Jesus said it several times. What does that mean? I don't know exactly. I just take him at his word. Like, you know what? If I get it, I got to pass it on. And it starts with Janet and my family and my friends and with my church family. You're my church family. And so some of you have heard me talk about stuff like this. I was in my first interim after leaving here was in Nashville. Because moved to Nashville, started serving pastors through Lifeway, and then eventually Guidestone, doing the same thing. That's what I've been doing the last 11 years, now with the state. And in this interim, at the end of it, on my last Sunday, some teenage girls came to present something to me and Janet, but mostly me. I took a picture of it, and I had to dig to find it, and finally found it. But apparently I talked so much about this. We have a picture of me with the hoodie. Yeah. By the way, that's like a double XL. I don't know what they were thinking. And I didn't wear it in public. I'll be honest with you. I wish I'd have kept it. But the fact is, for a year and a half, I pretty much assumed that those teenagers were not paying attention. And you may have teenagers as kids or grandkids, and you think, hey, they're not listening. They were listening. They're watching. Our kids, our grandkids, they're watching to see if what we believe and how we behave are consistent. But that doesn't mean you have to fake it, because that's not real. Conflict's real. Deal with conflict. Don't hide from it, but then show the grace. And so when they're having conflict, and they'll know how to deal with it later on. Show them how to protect their spouse. Show them how to pursue their spouse. But don't take the burden out of here that you have to do anything perfectly, because that's not the gospel. It's not possible. And there's not one person here, including and especially me and Janet, that are always in honeymoon mode. Because sometimes it kind of looks like that when you see that couple, that they're always protecting and pursuing. They're always getting along. They're always agreeing. They're always feeling it. No. There's nobody here that's always in honeymoon mode. Some weeks are worse than others. Some months are worse than others. And some years are going to be worse than others. Don't be discouraged. It's a long game. And that's the same with our spiritual life. There's nobody here that's always in revival mode. Because some of us have dark days. Some of us have dark months. Some of us have dark years. And you don't pursue the covenants that God's put in front of you and just keep loving them, whether you feel like it or not. And then God will bless it. He will. He will. But just some seasons are hard. And so don't fall prey to comparison, because that's not really fair anyway. And that just means you're normal. Even as a Christian who loves the Lord, loves your spouse, if you would bow with me for a moment. And I want you to just start by reflecting in your own response to God about, first of all, protecting your marriage. Lord, just ask him this honest question. He may answer it tomorrow or next week, but Lord, would you show me who needs to be demoted in my life? Who I've put in front of you or my spouse? And could I challenge you at the right time to ask your spouse that? Same questions. Who needs to be demoted in our life? Who needs to just take a step down so that we can step forward? And then the second bold prayer is, Lord, how can I pursue my wife or husband better? Show me how to love my spouse in an understanding way. Jesus, thank you for making clear from the get-go of the Bible, all in the Old Testament and the New, this old school leave and cleave way of growing our marriage. Thank you for a pastor and a staff that cares about developing marriages, that prioritizes marriages and family. And thank you for how you've blessed this church. I pray, Lord, as we come together in these 3 Wednesday nights, that you just tenderize our hearts, give us courage to listen first to you and then our spouse, and to boldly make the changes that we need, starting with ourselves. And if our marriages finish like so many finishers we've seen at Second Baptist over the years that go all the way to death do us part, Lord, that if we do that, we do it for your glory, and we give you the credit for it. In Jesus' wonderful name, amen.